Welcome to Together for Education in Ames podcast, where we have meaningful conversations on the state of our local school districts. Schools should be a place of hope for children, where they can come and learn without fear of being judged or labeled. We advocate for unity in our student population and excellence in education. I'm Kira Werstein, your host. Hosting with me today is Sadrach Aleman. In today's episode, we're going to outline the history of some of the notable events in the last year leading up to today, a point that many would call, at least in the Ames area community, tense and divided. And we'll finish by considering some of the implications for teachers and families, students, and our listeners today. So again, my name's Kira Werstein. I'm a college teaching professor and mother of 3 children in the Ames School District.
I'm Sadrach Aleman, and I'm a Spanish teacher in the area too, in Ames area.
So the controversy in Ames, as a parent, as I've observed, it revolves around the topic of social justice. The Ames district specifically has recognized that there is a need, that there are students that are struggling, they're underachieving, and also they recognize that there is racism, there is prejudice in the world, and they want to make sure that it's not causing underperformance in our school district with the children. And they want to support those underachieving students. That's how it appears to me as a parent. So, Sadrach, how would you, as a former teacher in the Ames School District, describe what it appears to you as perhaps one of, at least the roots of the tension in the climate and just in education in our culture even?
Well, I feel like the things that I have noticed before when I was in the district was kids being divided into groups, labeling kids. And this, from my point of view, we can talk about racism, but when you start labeling kids and you start putting kids into groups, it's for them to know that they kind of belong to these groups, but they stay on those groups instead of, mixing and saying, no, we're all together here. I feel like in some cases, it will be better if they kind of explain like, yes, we are all the same, but instead of labeling the kids in the district, like you are this, you are that. No, we're all the same. We're all students in this building and we're going to all do things together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so relating to social justice, it sounds like you're wanting the kids to be brought together. And on the topic of racism and what, as far as what the kids should learn about with things like civil rights and justice, do you support them learning about that in a public school?
I think that, when we talk about raising up kids, to not be racist, if you want to call it, I think that this is something that we as parents have to do in our houses. Like, this is my job to tell my kid, no, we're going to all be the same. We're going to bring kids into our circle. We're going to play with other kids instead of, like I said, you belong here. This is your label. I feel like the school should be talking about this, but in a different way, not the way that they have been doing it, like labeling and labeling and labeling.
Yeah. And so to build on that, I totally agree. And as far as civil rights justice, the part that where I see in our team Together for Education, where we see the role of the school is absolutely in teaching children about civil rights in our country, about racism that has occurred in our country, and that there should be equal opportunities for all people and respect for our shared humanity. I strongly feel personally that these topics of discrimination, racism, prejudice, they should be taught to our children in schools. It's critical that our children learn about racism in the world history as well, specific examples. In the United States, civil rights heroes like Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony. So I want to note that The events that we'll cover in this episode today are intended to be descriptive because we believe that transparency is important and that when things are brought to light, every person can make informed decisions for themselves and for their families. And so, again, we wholeheartedly support teaching about civil rights and racism, and we think that it's important to consider the approach and the way that that's done. So what we're going to take a look at next is the timeline of some of these major events leading to our current point in time. 2016 is when there were 2 outside consultants hired by Ames School District, Daniel Spikes and his colleague, Katie Swalwell, and they were hired to examine racial disparities in educational outcomes. According to public records request, over the next 5 years, the Ames District paid out roughly $230,000 to these 2 consultants, along with another colleague, Aaron Meeks, who is now currently employed in the district as a data research and assessment coordinator. A little bit about what these consultants promote on their website. It says Katie Swalwell reports that she facilitates sustained professional development on critical consciousness, implicit bias, and instructional, curricular, and structural changes to work towards equity and justice in education. And so there is a lot of content in that material. We will, in future episodes, really dig into what exactly does that mean. Some of the material that was used in those teacher trainings was then introduced to parents more recently, January 25th of last year, 2021, at a board meeting, and they announced that this curriculum, this program would be rolled out to children in the district, and this was preschool through 12th grade. This board meeting was highly controversial. It was more than 6 hours long. There were people that were calling in for the public forum part that were in support of the agenda and people who were opposed to the agenda. And finally, they actually stopped taking calls because it was just there were so many people. It's taking so much time. So, Cedric, do you think when you heard about these concerns from parents, perhaps that you know of, were there concerns about the content because the parents don't want racism and civil rights to be taught at all in the school?
I don't think so. I think that what I hear is like parents wanted to know more about what this is. When you sit in a board meeting, with the board members and other people presenting what this agenda is going to be about, I feel like the parents are there, but they're just hearing words. They don't know the concepts. They don't know what is going to come with these new ideas or what is going to cause in the students. So I feel like if we're going to do it, let's explicitly, talk to the parents and show them this is what we're going to be talking about, so they can have, eyes on the content and then decide. But bringing it before the parents, before the board, without they knowing what this is about, I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So from there were hundreds of parents and 11 teachers that contacted the Iowa legislature, who then did an investigation. The Iowa legislature, specifically the House Educational Oversight Committee, summoned the Ames district to a hearing. And at that hearing, the lawmakers told the district and the school board officials that they had received these complaints from parents, teachers, and others, that the school was teaching these materials that was posted on the school website, and they were morally objectionable and politically one-sided. I'm going to play just a quick, short from this meeting. This is Representative Steve Holt, who is addressing the former Superintendent Reisner.
Page 10 of what you sent, Superintendent Reiser, and what we have in this document you provided today is most interesting, because I think it smacks of indoctrination. It talks about if you are uncomfortable with Black Lives Matter then, and tells you why you shouldn't be. But there are many reasons to be uncomfortable with the phrase Black Lives Matter and the organization associated with it that have nothing to do with racism. Perhaps individuals are uncomfortable with the phrase because one of this organization's objectives is to destroy or challenge the Western prescribed nuclear family in America. Perhaps an individual could be uncomfortable with the phrase Black Lives Matter because members of this organization have marched down the streets of America chanting, quote, pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon, unquote, in reference to our brave men and women in law enforcement who come from all races and creeds, and you have children in your school of law enforcement officers. Perhaps individuals are uncomfortable with the term Black Lives Matter because of the heavy Marxist ideology that clearly influences this group and its founders. You seem to ignore all of these facts in your document. You ignore these facts just as you seem to have ignored the concern of many parents who came forward and told you they were uncomfortable with what they regarded as the indoctrination of their children.
Wow. Well, that was an intense clip. And I will tell you that most of the hearing follows a similar tone. Cedric, what was the climate like in the school last March after the district was summoned to this hearing?
I feel like they did. I mean, a lot of people didn't know what to do or how to behave or what to say or what not to say, because I, as a teacher, I thought that anything I will be saying, will get me in trouble. Because, I mean, it was said, like, not to do it, not to teach it, not to keep going forward with this. So I think that, it created a lot of tension, like, do I do it or I don't do it, like, yeah.
As far as teaching the district directive, which was this initiative, it was unclear to teachers. You said that, so there's the oversight meeting that said you can't teach this, but they're still saying, no, we're going to continue.
And they are doing it. I mean, it's not supposed to be happening, but there are teachers that are still doing that, which I know two parents that have a lot of concerns because they are thinking about this. Like, do I keep sending my child to school? Like, or the days that is going to be talking about this, can you let me know ahead of time so I don't send my kid to school? So there are a lot of teachers that are still doing it.
And this year?
Yeah, this year. And I don't know where the principals are at or where, the district office is sitting at, but I know parents have complained and they haven't done anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there will be more to come as we continue to dive into this topic on that exactly. Related to that note, a few months after this hearing in March, there was a bill that was passed called House File 802, which is an act that establishes specific requirements related to racism, sexism, diversity, and inclusion efforts. Schools and state government entities are prohibited from teaching, advocating, acting upon, or promoting specific defined concepts. There was 10 of them. I'm just going to list off a few, and we're going to have these links listed in our resources on the website to do more reading. So just to give you a preview, teaching, for example, this is one thing that's prohibited. Teaching that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. Another, that an individual, solely because of that person's race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Another, an individual's moral character is necessarily determined by the individual's race or sex. So these things are prohibited. So when I read these, I am somewhat surprised that this has to be said out loud. So what these concepts are defining is we can't assume characteristics of someone based on their skin color, based on if they're a male or female. And so when I read this initially, I'm thinking, oh, there's teachers that were doing that.
Yeah.
Wow. What are your thoughts on that as you've seen?
I'm here, thinking and almost laughing like, so what are we going to do? What is going to happen to the district or the teachers or the schools that are still doing it? Because it's prohibited, and they are still teaching it. Like if it's something that we all are supposed to be teaching. So I don't know what to say. Like I know of teachers at the middle school here in Ames doing it. Or did it at the beginning of the school year. I know of a family that have to homeschool their kid because this boy's mom was like, I cannot let my kid keep going to that class because, everything within the first 2 or 3 weeks of school was about that in a literature or literacy class. It has nothing to do with gender and literacy, like nothing. And still there it happened. It was being taught. So, what are we going to do? Like I said on the previous episode, we are supposed to be teaching content that has nothing to do with literacy. If they come to me as a Spanish teacher and tell me you have to, no, I'm here to teach the language, Spanish, nothing else. This is the content you are paying me to teach. This is the content I'm going to be teaching, period.
Yeah. And so would it be safe to say then that this bill being implemented hasn't influenced your teaching a whole lot? So,
No.
yeah. So you just continue carrying on with teaching Spanish.
Correct. Yeah.
Have you seen things change in education as a result of this bill?
I don't think so. No, I'm not in the district anymore, but like I said, from my point of view and from what I have heard from other parents, it hasn't changed. The bill passed, the bill is there, the law is there, it's prohibited, and it's still happening. So it's like it's there, but what's the point of being there? Let's just go through it or jump over or go around it and let's keep doing it.
Yeah. And so this bill is in place, but there are no consequences. And so you're saying that teachers and administrators just kind of are continuing with what they were doing before this bill, whether it was not teaching content related to this or teaching. They're just continuing because there's not a consequence.
Correct.
Now, the next major event that I want to take a look at here is after this bill was implemented, then it sounds like the legislature is starting to consider perhaps consequences. So according to an article that was published in the Ames Tribune and the Ames School District website itself, in September of last year, so 2021, the agenda that Ames schools, that we've been discussing thus far, that they implemented in February, it has continued to have ramifications for the district in the form of a targeted accreditation audit, a review from the Department of Education, so the state. And as far as the district has announced, this accreditation audit is still pending. So what has been explained is that the state is taking a closer look into the district by interviewing teachers, parents, students about this content. Now, like I said, the results are still pending, so we'll have to see, what really comes of that. I wonder if, as February is approaching and the district is rolling out a similar program as last year, I wonder if that perhaps could be why the state has held off. So we'll see. So we'll need to stay tuned for that. Now, Cedric, as a teacher and parent yourself, do you have any recommendations for parents so that they can be better informed about what their child is learning in school?
Yeah. As a parent, as a teacher, I'm going to start as a teacher, I get a lot of emails from the parents, that I work with, their kids, like, how are they doing? What are they doing? So the parents can do the exact same thing, reach out to the teachers and ask, how is my kid doing? What are the concepts that are learning right now? What kind of lessons are you delivering? And the teacher is supposed to respond back. That's my job, like to inform the parents about what I'm doing in my classroom. Another way that I think is really, really good that my parents do it is on Google Classroom. They ask for access to my class. And every single thing I post on Google Classroom, then the parents have access to. And so right there, what the students are seeing is what the parents are seeing too. So they can, like once a week, okay, I'm going to check into Google Classroom and see what was being taught this week. Also, as a parent, like ask questions, go to the building, sit with the principal, sit with the teachers and asking, okay, so what are we doing? How are things going in the building with my kid, with my, my kids' classmates? Like, what is going on in the building? Just ask questions and keep themselves informed. Like, there are a lot of information out there on the internet. Just, sit down and ask things on the internet or find out things about bills or, laws being implemented in schools. So that way, when something comes up, they know exactly how to respond back to the school. And not just like trying to make up things, but like, no, the bill says, the law says this is prohibited. And they will have, a base, a strong structure, a strong base to go to the buildings and say, this is wrong.
Yeah. Awesome tips. Thank you. And as we wrap up this episode, we are really just scratching the surface of some of these events, the policies and practices that are used in the Ames district and across central Iowa. And so make sure to stay tuned for more conversations because we believe that transparency is important. And when things are brought to light, every person can make a more informed decision for themselves and for their family. So to finish, what we're going to do here on our website is provide some of these resources that we've referenced for you, the Oversight Committee hearing, the link to that. And so you can hear it for yourself, as well as information from the targeted accreditation audit. And as we head into February, we will be sharing more about what will be included in the school's agenda. The district has posted much less information publicly on their website this year for parents and community members to view, but we at Together for Education do have a substantial amount of information that's been shared with us. So this information that's been used to train the staff and that has been given to the staff as resources to use in their classrooms. So we will be sharing that content in future episodes. Thanks so much for joining us today. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts because it's together that we build a thriving community in Ames and Central Iowa.